Jessica wiped down the last table in the corner of Rosie's diner. Her feet hurt. They always hurt after working since 6 in the morning, but she smiled anyway because that's what good waitresses do. The diner was busy that Tuesday afternoon. People filled almost every seat. The smell of coffee and fresh pancakes filled the air. Jessica loved that smell. It reminded her of home, even though this place wasn't home at all. "Jessica, table 7 needs water," her boss Mr. Henderson called from behind the counter. "Yes, sir." Jessica grabbed the water pitcher and hurried over. Her worn-out shoes squeaked on the clean floor. At table 7 sat a man in an expensive suit. Jessica could tell it was expensive because it looked different from anything she had ever seen. The man had gray hair and kind eyes. He was reading something on his phone. "Here's your water, sir," Jessica said with a warm smile. The man looked up. "Thank you very much." His voice was gentle, not like some rich people who came to the diner and treated her like she was invisible. "My name is Jessica. I'll be taking care of you today. What can I get you?" The man smiled back. "I'm Paul. Nice to meet you, Jessica. I'll have a black coffee and the pancake special, please." "Coming right up, sir." Jessica wrote down the order and walked back to the kitchen. She didn't know that this man, Paul, was actually Paul Richardson. Paul Richardson owned buildings all over the city. He owned hotels and shopping centers. He was a billionaire, but Jessica didn't know any of that. To her, he was just another customer who deserved good service. 10 minutes later, another man walked into the diner. He was also wearing an expensive suit. He had blonde hair and walked like he owned the place. His eyes moved around the room until they landed on Paul. "Paul, there you are," the blonde man said loudly. Paul looked up and waved. "David, over here." The man named David sat down across from Paul. Jessica brought Paul's coffee and pancakes. "And what can I get for you, sir?" she asked David. David barely looked at her. "Just coffee, black." "Right away, sir." Jessica noticed that David seemed nervous. His hands shook a little. His eyes kept moving around, but she didn't think too much about it. She just went to get his coffee. When she came back with David's coffee, the two men were talking in low voices. They stopped when she approached. "Here you go, sir," Jessica said, placing the cup in front of David. "Thank you," David said quickly. Jessica walked away but stayed close enough to help if they needed anything. That was her job, always be ready. "So Paul, congratulations on the Silverstone deal," David said. $500 million, that's incredible." Paul smiled. "Thank you, David. It was a lot of hard work, but yes, we signed the contract this morning. The Silverstone shopping complex will be the biggest project we've ever done." David's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I still can't believe you got it. I mean, my company wanted that contract too." "I know," Paul said kindly, "but business is business, David, you understand." Of course," David said. He looked down at his own coffee, then at Paul's cup. "Hey, I need to use the restroom. Don't start eating without me. I want to hear all about your plans." "Take your time," Paul said. David got up and walked toward the back of the diner where the restrooms were. Jessica was refilling the sugar containers at a nearby table. She watched David go, and something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. It was just a feeling in her stomach. Then she saw something that made her freeze. David didn't go into the restroom. He stopped just before the restroom door and looked back at Paul. Paul was still looking at his phone, not paying attention. David quickly reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small bottle. It was tiny, about the size of Jessica's thumb. Jessica's heart started beating fast. David looked around. He didn't see Jessica watching him. Then he quickly walked back toward the table, but he stayed behind Paul where Paul couldn't see him. David reached out toward Paul's coffee cup. His hand shook as he uncapped the tiny bottle. Jessica didn't think, she just moved. She ran toward the table as fast as she could. Just as David was about to pour something from the bottle into Paul's coffee, Jessica reached out and knocked the cup away. The coffee spilled all over the table and onto the floor. The little bottle fell from David's hand and rolled under a chair. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, sir," Jessica said loudly, even though her heart was pounding. "I'm so clumsy, let me clean this up right away." Paul looked surprised. "It's okay, accidents happen." But David's face had gone completely white. His eyes were wide and his mouth hung open. He stared at Jessica. Jessica looked right at David. "Sir, you dropped something." She pointed to where the little bottle had rolled. David's face went from white to red. He started backing away from the table. I have to go," David stammered. "I forgot. I have a meeting." "But David, you just got here," Paul said, confused. "Sorry, Paul, emergency, we'll talk later." David practically ran out of the diner. Let's pause on the story. If you're enjoying this story so far, let me know by subscribing to this channel. It helps me tell even more stories like this one. If you've subscribed, let's get back into the story. After David ran out of the diner, Paul watched his friend leave with a puzzled expression. Then he looked at Jessica. That was strange. Jessica bent down and picked up the little bottle from under the chair. Her hands were shaking now. She held it up to the light. Inside was a clear liquid. "Sir," Jessica said quietly, "I think you should call the police." Paul looked at the bottle. Then he looked at Jessica. Then he looked at the door where David had just run out. Understanding slowly filled his eyes. Did David try to?" Paul couldn't finish the sentence. Jessica nodded. "I saw him. He was going to pour this into your coffee when you weren't looking." Paul's face went pale. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and called the police. Everything happened very fast after that. The police came. They took the bottle. They asked Jessica a million questions. They asked Paul questions too. Other customers watched with wide eyes. Mr. Henderson, Jessica's boss, stood behind the counter with his mouth hanging open. The police tested the liquid in the bottle right there in the diner with some kind of special kit. The police officer's face became very serious. "Mr. Richardson," the officer said to Paul, "this liquid contains enough poison to kill several people. If you had drunk that coffee, you would have died within an hour." Paul sat down heavily in the booth. He looked at Jessica with tears in his eyes. "You saved my life," he whispered. Jessica felt tears in her own eyes too. "I just did what was right, sir." The police found David trying to leave the city. They arrested him at the train station. Later, David confessed everything. He was jealous that Paul got the big Silverstone contract. He wanted to kill Paul so that maybe his own company could get the contract instead. He had planned everything for days. But he never planned on Jessica paying attention. He never planned on someone actually caring enough to notice. After the police left and the diner finally got quiet again, Paul asked if he could talk to Jessica. They sat in the same booth where everything had happened. "Jessica," Paul said, "I don't even know how to thank you. You saved my life. If you hadn't been watching, if you hadn't acted so quickly." "Please, sir, you don't have to thank me," Jessica said. "I'm just glad you're okay." Paul shook his head. "No, that's not enough. You did something incredibly brave. Tell me, Jessica, what do you do? I mean, besides work here?" Jessica looked down at her hands. "Just this, sir. I work here 6 days a week. I'm trying to save money to go to school. I want to study business one day. I want to understand how companies work, how people make deals and create jobs. But school is expensive, and I have to help my mama with rent." Paul was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "How would you like to come work for me?" Jessica's eyes went wide. "What?" "I need a new personal assistant. My last one retired 3 months ago, and I haven't found the right person. A personal assistant helps me with my schedule, my meetings, my business. It's a lot of work, but it pays well, very well, and I'll pay for you to go to school too. Business school, any school you want." Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Sir, I don't know anything about being a personal assistant. I'm just a waitress." "You're not just anything," Paul said firmly. "You're observant, you're quick thinking, you're brave, you care about doing the right thing. Those are exactly the qualities I need. Everything else I can teach you." Tears rolled down Jessica's cheeks. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. Jessica, you gave me my life back. Let me help you build yours." That's how Jessica's life changed. She gave Mr. Henderson notice that week. He was sad to lose her, but so happy for her new opportunity. Jessica started working for Paul the next Monday. At first, everything was scary and new. Paul's office building was huge and shiny. Everyone wore fancy clothes. Jessica felt out of place in her simple dresses and worn-out shoes. But Paul was patient. He taught her how to use the computer systems. He showed her how to organize his calendar. He explained what happened in his meetings. Jessica learned fast. She wrote everything down in a notebook and studied it every night. The other workers in the office were surprised at first. Some of them whispered about how Jessica used to be a waitress, but Jessica worked harder than anyone. She came early and stayed late. She never complained. She always had a smile. Paul also kept his promise about school. He enrolled Jessica in business classes at the community college. She went to class in the evenings after work. It was exhausting, but Jessica had never been happier. She was learning. She was growing. Months went by. Jessica became better and better at her job. She anticipated what Paul needed before he asked. She solved problems quickly. She was kind to everyone, from the janitor to the vice president. People started to respect her, not because of where she came from, but because of who she was. Paul noticed all of this, but he noticed something else too. He noticed how the office felt brighter when Jessica was there. He noticed how he looked forward to their morning meetings. He noticed how her laugh made him smile. He noticed how smart and thoughtful she was, not just about business, but about life. At first, Paul tried to ignore these feelings. Jessica was his employee. She was also much younger than him. It wouldn't be appropriate. But feelings don't always listen to what's appropriate. Jessica noticed things too. She noticed how kind Paul was to everyone. She noticed how he donated money to help poor families. She noticed how he always asked about her mother and her classes. She noticed how safe she felt around him. She noticed that when he smiled at her, her heart beat a little faster. 2 years passed. Jessica graduated from community college with the highest grades in her class. Paul threw a party for her at his office. Everyone celebrated. Jessica's mother came too. She cried happy tears seeing her daughter succeed. That night, after everyone left, Paul and Jessica cleaned up the conference room together. "I'm so proud of you, Jessica," Paul said, picking up empty cups. "I couldn't have done it without you," Jessica replied. "You changed my life, Paul." "No," Paul said softly, "you changed mine." They looked at each other. Something passed between them, something that had been building for 2 years. "Jessica," Paul said quietly, "I need to tell you something. And if this makes you uncomfortable, please just say so, and we'll never speak of it again." Jessica's heart was pounding. "What is it?" "I've fallen in love with you," Paul said simply. "I've tried not to. I've told myself a million reasons why I shouldn't, but I can't help it. You're the most amazing person I've ever met. You're smart and kind and brave. You make every day better. I love you." Jessica felt tears in her eyes again, happy tears. "I love you too, Paul. I've loved you for so long, but I didn't think. I mean, you're you and I'm just." "Don't say that," Paul said, stepping closer. "You're not just anything, you're everything." He took her hands in his. "I know this is complicated. I'm your boss. People will talk, but I don't care what people say. I care about you. If you'll have me, I promise to spend every day making you happy." Jessica smiled through her tears. "Yes, yes, I'll have you." They kissed right there in the conference room, surrounded by party decorations and empty cake plates. They were right about one thing. People did talk. Some people at the office whispered. Some people in Paul's social circles raised their eyebrows. A man like Paul Richardson, billionaire, marrying his former waitress, his assistant. But Paul and Jessica didn't care. They were happy. That's all that mattered. They got married a year later in a beautiful ceremony. It wasn't too big or too fancy. Jessica's mother cried happy tears again. Paul's real friends came and celebrated with them. Jessica had been a poor waitress with big dreams. Now she was a successful businesswoman, a wife, and someone who helped hundreds of people achieve their own dreams. But the thing she was most proud of, she was still the same person who cared enough to pay attention that day in the diner. She was still the same person who chose to do the right thing, even when it would have been easier to look away. And that, more than any money or success, was what truly mattered. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, share and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories.